The Halion Chronicles. The Protectorate of Hellas stands at the edge of war. Titans stir, and ancient machines whisper in the void. Beneath the crimson grays of Thanatos, fate is cast in steel and circuitry. The Olympians walk among the mortals, spinning their schemes. Myth do not endure, they break, they burn, they fall. Only those bold enough to defy fate may earn their place among legend. Your Cyber Saga journey continues now. Summons. The temple guards, noticing the relic exposed, began to edge in closer. You return with the lost treasure for Bythoner and the temple, my Raja. The priest called, his voice syrupy with delight. With a trembling motion, the frail man extended a spindly hand from beneath his robes, revealing a scroll bound in deep green ribbon, sealed with wax. Upon it, the sigil of the Bythoner Tuul. A serpent coiled around a jagged stone glinted in the light. He raised his right hand, bony fingers jutting from the sleeves of his dark tunic, and gestured airily towards the temple guards. The scroll clutched between his fingers. The guards, catching the silent command, exchanged wary glances, but loosened their grip of their spears, their bone shields dipping slightly. The priest turned his skeletal fingers towards the Titan rune, leaning heavily on the staff in his left hand. He took an agonized, greedy step forward. "Perhaps I shall let you live, Thrish," he rasped. "If you accept 8 per ancestor." His right hand clawed for the rune, the scroll trembling as it hovered above the stone. Thrish could feel the ravenous desire radiating off the man, a lust for the knowledge and power bound within the rune. It was clearer than ever. This gaunt wretch valued the relic more than gems, more than parts, more than breath itself. "Thrish," he hissed, his voice slithering like scales through the mist. "The High Priest demands your presence. I cannot guarantee your safety within the halls of Bythoner." He paused, eyes gleaming with a hunger barely masked by the hooded darkness. His voice trembled with eagerness. "Leave the forbidden relic with me. Take the scroll and move swiftly." Leaning in, his breath as cold as a crypt, he whispered, "Make haste, relic hunter. The serpent sees through the shards and tolerates no idleness among the living." He yanked at the rune, and Thrish felt the priest's excitement reach its fever pitch. The man's fingers twitched and tugged like a spicer lost in a Clespian agronomodrome. With a reluctant breath, Thrish released the rune. The priest immediately let the scroll drop to the ground like discarded scraps of cabbage. In a flash, the frail man tucked the rune beneath his tunic, glancing about like a cut purse at the edge of a shadowed alley. 8 each, he he said breezily, winking at the temple guard behind him. With that, he turned away, ropes trailing like smoke, and disappeared slowly into the winding alleys at the edge of the market. Thrish retrieved the scroll, peering through a ribbon of mist drifting in the priest's wake. Sera-la exhaled with audible relief, her tail slackening as she strolled nonchalantly towards the temple guards, who were now clumsily sorting the pots. "You heard him. 8 each," she announced boldly, as though she hadn't just participated in a forbidden relic exchange that could have earned them a one-way fall off the balcony. She was larger than life, but beneath her bravado simmered a quiet sorrow. Ever since leaving her homeland of Nymphea, south of the Nixari dominion in the Camercan realm, something in her had been unsettled. She had lost someone. A feud brewed within her, one she tried to forget. But now she was a Yellowstone, Thrish thought. He watched her, noting the fearless authority in her tone as she addressed the guards, his thoughts clouded with quiet amusement. Breaking the seal, Thrish unrolled the scroll. The parchment bore a message scrawled in the looping serpentine script of the Bythoner clergy. Curiously, it was penned using the Hellenic alphabet, a tongue Thrish had learned from a scholar during his time at the Academy of Tenastia. Whoever had written these lines had done so with an eerie precision. Every character was the same height, the same width, the same elegant curves and strokes, as if each symbol emerged from a fractal pattern rather than a human hand. The scroll was not a mere message, it was a summons, a command for an audience with the High Priest himself, requesting Thrish's expertise for matters deemed urgent. Nothing more was revealed. "They need a relic hunter?" Thrish muttered, half amused, scratching his head with a bewildered smile. Sera-la approached, arms full with 3 bulging sacks of pods. "What is this?" she asked, her eyes glittering with triumph. "An invitation," Thrish replied absently, turning the scroll over in his hands. "From the High Priest of the temple." The Sera-la laughed, a mix of relief and disbelief in her voice. "You nearly got us killed by the temple, Thrish," she said, glancing back at the temple guards, who still eyed them with suspicion as the haggard laborers pushed their carts towards the dead market. "And now, the High Priest invites you?" Her smile faded into a frown. "What if it hadn't worked?" she snapped, accusatory. Thrish sighed, the weight of his choice reflected in his eyes. "It was reckless, Sera-la, I know. But I saw those kids in the shard fields, starving while their guardians scraped sulfur just to survive the next cycle." His tone sharpened with conviction. "I couldn't just stand by, refusing to fight for our tribe." Sera-la's expression softened as she thought of the suffering they'd witnessed back at the Yellowstone. "I understand," she murmured, nodding. "But you still took a huge risk," she added, her voice gently pressing against his resolve. "And I know a greedy priest when I see one," Thrish replied, pointing down the alley where the gaunt figure had vanished. "Even the high priest needs a relic hunter now," he said with a touch of mock pride. He held up the scroll, grinning. "It was a gamble, but I knew you could handle the sprint." Sera-la scoffed, shaking her head with a mixture of amusement and exasperation. "You always think you have everything figured out, don't you?" Thrish nodded towards the sacks, ignoring her jab. "What did we get?" "Enough for a drink at the inn tonight," she replied, with a brief smile. "And enough spice and beans from Klespos to carry us through the coming ice season. Not enough to fatten all the rats, but at least fewer corpses in the next caravan." Her smile widened at the thought. She stepped closer, her tone shifting to playful impatience. "You may have saved the tribe, Thrish, but you still owe me. How about we head to the Marrow Inn and fire up the hot tub?" I'd love to," Thrish said, holding up the scroll. "But I need to see what the High Priest wants." He gave a regretful shrug. "Just try not to spend it all at the gambling table." "Fine," Sera-la sighed, stepping back. "But don't get yourself thrown off the balcony." She shot at him, a teasing look. "And when you're back, knock first. Give the mist your time to clear out the tub." Thrish chuckled, picturing the scene. "Of course, my lady," he said with an exaggerated bow. Then his voice sobered. "But if I'm not back by tomorrow, return to Lagua. The pots and the tribe come first." "Sure," she called back, turning towards the caravan. "I'll take the Mistya back to the Yellowstone and forget all about you and your ridiculous excuses," she added, with a mock huff, striding away. Thrish smiled, catching the playful glint in Sera-la's eyes. He knew her well enough to see past the teasing. Beneath the swagger lay something deeper. Sera-la was a free spirit, no doubt. She wasn't the chaste maiden of Athena bound by vows and obedience. She was wild, untamed, utterly her own. And that, more than anything, was what drew him to her. But as he watched her walk away, a flicker of something sharp twisted in his chest. He tried to dismiss it. Irrational, he told himself, but it stayed. He knew she wouldn't spend the night alone. Her charm and boldness made sure of that. It wasn't quite jealousy, but something thornier. A tangle of admiration, protectiveness, and longing. He respected her fierce independence, yet it stung to know her laughter, her warmth, could be given so freely to others. In a life of chaos, she was his anchor. Her loyalty to the tribe, her sharp wit, the way she met the world with defiance and fire. These were the things he held on to. Yet it was the quiet glimpses, the fleeting softness she rarely revealed, that carved out a place in him she'd never claimed. He was caught in the tension between guarding her and letting her fly free. And the thought of her in someone else's arms soured the back of his throat. As Thrish turned the scroll over in his hands, he dwelled on the High Priest's summons. It was welcome distraction, something tangible to anchor his thoughts, to steer them away from the tangled mess of feelings that Sera-la always seems to steer. Duty called, or perhaps it was a trap. Either way, it offered clarity where his heart offered none. With a last glance in her direction, he gathered himself. Whatever waited in the temple would demand his full focus. He wouldn't allow emotion to cloud his judgment. Not now. Not when the stakes were rising like steam from the rift. Thank you for listening to the Halion Chronicles. You journeyed until the end and likely enjoyed your travels through this episode. Let us know with a like and share it with fellow travelers of Halion. Never miss an episode, subscribe and turn on the notification to stay ahead of the unfolding saga. For free additional content, lore deep dives and more stories from Halion, visit our Substack at halionchronicles.substack.com.